Hello, everyone. We are going to start this week off with an introduction of what figurative language is. Throughout these next few weeks, we're going to be looking at individual forms of figurative language. But to start off, we really want to understand and know what figurative language really is and what it entails and what the definition is so that we can go into each of these specific examples, really knowing when and why we use figurative language. So let's get started with what figurative language is. We have a definition. Figurative language is words or phrases that go beyond the literal meaning of what is said. It contains figures of speech that aren't meant to be taken literally. Okay, so this is a great definition for us to kind of reference, but we want to dive in a little bit deeper right now on what exactly it means when we have a literal meaning of something versus a figurative meaning of something or a figure of speech. What exactly is the difference between these two different types of meanings? So let's look at literal versus figurative meanings. Okay, we're going to start at the left with our literal meanings. So, a literal meaning is words function exactly how they are defined in a dictionary. So, if we were to go into a dictionary and look up every single word in a phrase and take exactly how each word is defined, that would be our literal meaning. What we literally mean by each word in a certain phrase would be the very basic literal definition of whatever is being said. This is a little different than a figurative meaning. So, a figurative meaning, if we're looking to our right now, word meanings change or exaggerate the actual meaning of words in phrases. So, these phrases are not meant to be taken literally. They can have kind of more of a meaning to them that we need to figure out what the author is exactly trying to tell us by using these words together in a certain phrase. So let's look at a fun example that's going to really show us the difference between a literal meaning and a figurative meaning that we probably have heard a few times and have just never really thought of it as being figurative language, but it is. So let's take a look at it's raining cats and dogs. Okay, so if we take a look at our left side, our literal meaning, we see cats and dogs falling down from the sky, which is exactly what we would literally mean by the phrase, it is raining cats and dogs. However, we know this isn't what is meant when people say it is raining cats or dogs. That kind of has a figurative meaning to it that we need to understand and dive a little deeper in. Well, what we are actually meaning, not what we literally are saying, what we actually mean by it's raining cats and dogs is it's raining really hard. So we can kind of see that being depicted on our right side. We see a very hard rainstorm. So very different between the two pictures. One picture we have animals falling out of the sky, which is something we wouldn't see, right? This would never happen. But on the right side, we see what is actually meant by when someone is says it's raining cats or dogs, we have that understanding that it's not meant to be taken literally, but it's more of an exaggeration instead. So this is just one example that shows figurative language that we use not only in writing but in our everyday lives. It'll be interesting to see once we dive deeper and deeper. You'll notice some of you use figurative language when you're speaking just to a friend or to your family. It's very easy to be speaking figuratively instead of literally. So, why do we use figurative language? What is the reasoning? Why would we take the time to understand figurative language and when is it even used? Well, figurative language makes our writing way more exciting. It brings this light to our writing and it allows us to have a little bit more fun and be more descriptive and kind of paint this picture. So it's a great way to create an image for your reader to envision, right? By giving these descriptive scenarios, we can kind of take these figurative meanings and paint a better picture of what is actually going on. So not only is it a great way to make your writing more exciting, but it helps paint that picture that we try to get across. Writers use figurative language to add humor, make comparisons, add emphasis, and many other emotions and expressions to their writing. So, overall, we talk a lot about amping up our writing. Figurative language really is going to take your writing to that next level and make it way more interesting for a reader to read. So, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to do a brief overview of each of the seven different forms of figurative language that we are going to be looking at throughout these next few weeks. Okay, these are just a quick overview. We're not going to do in depth lessons in this video. We're going to be going deeper and deeper throughout the weeks. So, these are just kind of going to introduce you to what we're going to be looking at. So we're going to start off with similes, and some of you might have already been introduced to similes and are already familiar with them from third grade. So a simile compares two unlike things using like or as. So if we look down at our examples at the bottom to the left, we have they are like two peas in a pod. Okay, so that is our simile. We have the word like being used. We see what the literal definition of two peas in a pod are, but if we look to the right, the figurative meaning that is trying to get portrayed is that they are best friends. So we're not actually literally talking about two peas in a pod. We're talking about two people that are considered best friends by using the word like or as. And in this example, we're using the word like. Next, we're going to be taking a look at metaphors. So, a metaphor compares two unlike things by describing one thing as another to show that they have something in common. So, in this case, we're not using the word like or as, we are just saying that this thing is another thing. So, if we look at our example, our classroom was a total zoo today. So we're comparing our classroom to a zoo. Of course, it is not literally a zoo filled with animals. We have a deeper meaning. Our classroom was a total zoo today. We're trying to get across the point that our classroom was crazy. There was probably a lot going on. Things were untamed. Um, but we're giving this direct comparison saying our classroom was a zoo. And next, we're going to take a look at idioms. An idiom is a well known phrase that has a different meaning from what is said or written. So, idioms are actually my favorite form of figurative language. I think they can be a lot of fun. They're very easy to get super creative with. So, again, we're being given this example. It is raining cats and dogs, and we see this picture of literal cats and dogs coming out of the sky. But of course, we know that is not the figurative meaning that is trying to get across. What the author is actually trying to say is it is raining very hard. And let's take a look at hyperboles now. A hyperbole is a big, obvious exaggeration. So, hyperboles are fun because this is a lot of times what many of us will use in our everyday talks with one another and ways that we like to communicate with one another. We like to exaggerate. This is a great way to add humor to our everyday lives. So, in our example, we see that the little girl is saying, I am so hungry, I could eat a horse. Of course, literally, we know she could not eat an entire horse. This is just a way for her to exaggerate. She's so hungry she could eat so much food, and she's comparing this to eating a animal the size of a horse, which of course would be crazy. But this exaggeration kind of brings light to the situation. It shows her emotions of being very, very hungry. And now we're going to take a look at personification. A personification gives an object or thing human qualities. So, human qualities are human thoughts, actions, or feelings. So, personification is actually really interesting to look at because what we're doing is we're giving objects that are not humans human qualities. So, let's take a look at this example. The dish ran away with the spoon. So, if we really think about that, we know dishes do not have feet, spoon do not have feet. Running is a quality that humans can do. Humans are able to run, but a spoon and a plate are not able to do that. So, we're actually giving the spoon and the plate a human quality. So, personification is always really fun to look at as well because we are able to think about, well, what are humans capable of doing that these inanimate objects are not able to do? And now we are going to look at an onomatopoeia. Okay, big word. We're going to break it apart. It is onomatopoeia. So, an onomatopoeia is a sound word. It imitates a thing or action by the sound it makes. So, when we think of onomatopoeias, we're actually thinking about sounds that we associate with certain objects. So, if we look at this pig, we associate a pig with saying the word oink, and we associate a train with saying the word choo choo. Even though those might not be the actual sounds that we hear come out of these objects, we have these associations with these sound words and these objects. And finally, we are going to be looking at an alliteration. Alliteration is repeating the initial or beginning sounds of words near each other. So I like to think of these as tongue twisters. We have this initial sound being repeated over and over and over again. So let's see if I can do this example in one go. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Okay, so we have that S sound at the beginning being repeated over and over and over and over again, which is, these are also really fun to come up with. They can be difficult to say at times, and if you say it 10 times fast, it is very hard to do. Okay, so these are the 7 forms of figurative language that we're going to be looking at. Again, remember, we went over a very quick overview. We're going to go more in depth with each of these throughout these next few weeks. So, great job to everyone. We are going to get practicing now with each of these forms of figurative language. And I think you guys are going to think this is a lot of fun. And you can get super creative with these. So I'm really excited to see what you all come up with.